Hey there, here's a quick note before we begin. You can support the podcast by downloading, sharing, or checking with my favorite hiking gear at justhyke.com. Let's hit the trail. Hey everybody, welcome to the Just Hyke Podcast. My name is Melanie. I'm a certified personal trainer and adventure coach, and I also do in-house and group training. And I love to take people on adventures. Last year we went to Kilimanjaro and to Iceland. Next year we got other things in the works, and there'll be more announcements about that. But today on the show we have Alicia Filley. Am I saying that correctly? Filley?
Actually, it's Alicia Filley.
Alicia, thank you for correcting me. Okay,
Yeah,
so Alicia is a physical therapist. I don't know what MS means behind your name. What is that?
that means I had an advanced master's degree in
Oh,
physical
perfect. In
health.
physical therapy. So she is also an internationally published health and fitness writer, editor, speaker, and the founder of Healthy Hiker. And that's a program that helps hikers regain their health so that they can feel confident on the trail and stop worrying about being left behind. As a licensed physical therapist for 30 years, she has helped thousands recover from injury and returning to the playing field better than ever before. She specializes in treatment of runners and endurance athletes and hikers, of course, because it's the Healthy Hiker. Welcome, Alicia. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for being on the podcast today. How are you?
Hey, Melanie, thank you for having me. It's so good to see you, and I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to chat. We have had several trail chats before, so I'm excited to get to talk to you on your show.
Yay, thank you. We actually met, I don't know if you remember, it was a couple of years ago. We met on one of the trails. I think it was over at George Mitchell Preserve
Yeah,
over in the woodlands, right? And
absolutely.
that's one of my passions is just encouraging people to get out there and enjoy the outdoors, no matter what level that they're at.
Absolutely. I agree. And there's so much that's accessible to everyone at every fitness level. I love that you promote that as well.
What inspired you to blend personal training with the love of the outdoors?
Yeah, so I'm actually a physical therapist but I am also an avid hiker. At a time when my ability to hike and my available time to hike was increasing and I was getting excited about doing more things in the outdoors. My kids were getting older and I was having a little bit more of my own time. I saw that lots of women my age were actually moving away from adventurous activities. They were staying behind at the cabin with their families. While their families went out, they were going back to the lodge or going back to the cabin or waiting in cafes while their families scampered around and everything from hiking and national park vacations to even excursions in European cities or Walt Disney. They were just really missing out on family activities because they were limited physically. Part of the reason they were limited physically is because they had given so much of themselves to their careers and to their families that they had just ignored their fitness and felt like they just didn't have it anymore. In fact, I had one person tell me, well, that ship has sailed. I'm just in another phase of my life now where I just don't get to do the things. And for me as a physical therapist, I just knew that wasn't true. I just decided that it was possible that these predominantly women could still live adventurous lives. And I knew how to help them do that. So that's what inspired me to create the Healthy Hiker training program and to start working with people to regain their fitness, regain their health through exercise and nutrition so that they could go on and lead adventurous lives and go on and do these wild and bucket list hikes that they wanted to do.
I love that so much. And that's such a great observation because quite often, like if we look around and, we look at our own family, even like our aunts and our uncles and our grandparents or, just sisters or whoever it is. And, what is that reason? Why are they choosing to stay in the kitchen, let's call it, right? Because that's an important role and someone's got to cook the food. But don't you want to go on that adventure also? And, I love that you observed that, some people were staying behind and maybe it was a choice because they just feel like they can't physically keep up. And
Right,
that's
right.
that's just so sad, right?
Yeah, it's sometimes that choice is just made because no one's come up to them and told them it didn't have to be that way,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So they just haven't had anybody who, number one, believed in them, and number two, knew how it could happen, knew how it could change.
Right.
And I do hear that a lot. You talk about our parents and our grandparents. I hear that a lot from clients. Like, I don't want to be like my mom, or I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to spend my retirement in a recliner.
Right.
I want to be out with my family. I want to be checking these things off of my bucket list. I want to still have fun.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I see so many women now getting out and getting into nature and exploring and enjoying the outdoors. And as they explore a little bit, then it's like, wow, that's actually really cool. And overall, it's really affordable. Like you put on a pair of hiking boots and you get yourself a backpack with some essentials, and you can go hiking anywhere in the world. You don't have to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars at a theme park or something. You can go to a hiking or a nature trail, and usually it's free or it's just a few dollars to get into the park. And it's such an affordable and enjoyable activity that I really wish more people would do more often.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay, so let's get into what are some of the most common injuries that you see in hikers?
Well, the most common thing that I see in hikers is knee pain.
Mm-hmm.
And most hikers experience that when they're stepping down, they're going up or downstairs, mostly on going downstairs, or if they're hiking downhill. And as a physical therapist, I understand exactly why this happens. And it doesn't necessarily depend on a diagnosis. It has to do with the biomechanics of movement. I too was a knee pain sufferer, which some people don't know, but if you've heard my story, I had horrible knee pain. I was a student athlete in the late 70s and was told all my life to just avoid the things that made my knees hurt. Even as a physical therapist, I was content to wait until I was old enough for a knee replacement. Like I just
Oh,
figured
wow.
this was my fate. This was my lot in life. I was just going to have knee pain until I could get a new set of equipment. And that kind of was the predominant thought. I mean, if you grew up in the 70s or 80s, especially if you were a female athlete, that's probably what you were told. Just go find something else that doesn't hurt, right? If it, doc, it hurts when I do that, well, don't do that. And as a PT, I kind of accepted this myself, but it really wasn't until I had to dive into the research and rehabilitation of today's athletes. And once I understood the biomechanics and the science and the strategies for rehab and performance, that I was able to fix my own knee pain. And now I share that strategy with hikers in my Easy Knee Pain program. So that is really what I see most often with hikers and where I've predominantly focused my practice.
What are some of the things that people can do to help keep their knees healthy or to help ease some of that knee pain? Do you have like your top five things that you tell people?
Well, there's the things that you can do on a hike today. Number
Like,
one is use poles.
oh yeah, I love
Absolutely.
my hiking poles.
Believe it or not, there's still this stigma around using hiking poles. I mean, I have a blog entitled, "Do These Poles Make Me Look Weak?" I don't know why there's this stigma about hiking poles. They're a wonderful tool. When you understand the physics of it, they actually transfer the forces that you're experiencing through the ground up through your body off of your knees, off of your hips, and they help with balance. They widen your base of support. I mean, there's no reason not to at least have them with you and definitely use them.
With that base of support, is that two poles? Does it matter if you have two poles or one pole? I probably do not use my hiking poles correctly, and I tend to use only one pole just because I feel claustrophobic if I'm using two poles, and then it gets to be too cumbersome if I'm trying to like take a picture and then I got two poles I have to deal with. I find one pole is enough for me personally. And I'll use it for other things other than hiking. Like, for example, if I'm the leader on the hike, which I'm usually the first one out on the trail, I'll fold up my poles and I'll use it. If you can see my hands, for those listening, I'm swishing my pole up and down in the air in front of me and it's clearing the spider webs. So I use
Yeah.
it for clearing spider webs. And then I also use it for kind of rustling in the bushes, like let's say kind of kick something out of the way that shouldn't be in my path. Maybe it's a critter that I'm wondering if it's alive or dead. And it's like, okay, I need to go around this thing. So, how do you use hiking poles properly?
Yeah, those are all great uses for poles. I mean, you got to use the equipment you've got. So, yes, that's fine. But none of that is going to really help your knee pain.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that's got nothing to do with knee pain.
So, when you have two poles, it changes you from a two-legged creature to a four-legged creature. And now, instead of this very narrow base of support between your 2 feet, you now have a quadrangle base of support where you are now four legs, basically. So it just kind of gives you more leeway to move without losing your balance.
I imagine that'll improve your endurance also because you'll be able to hike longer.
Hiking poles are great for you don't have to work as hard with your body if you've got a little bit extra size.
Support and something absorbing some of that impact as
Yeah.
you're walking.
To use them correctly, you need to have them adjusted correctly. You want to be able, if you're standing on level ground, to have your elbows at 90 degrees, have your shoulders hanging straight down in a natural position, and be able to grip the hand grips with your elbows staying at 90 degrees. So if you've ever skied, it's similar to how you would be fitted for a ski pole. Now, that's on level ground, but if you are going uphill, you want your hiking poles to be a little bit shorter. So you want that angle in your elbow to be a little bit more acute. So you want that angle to be a little less than 90 degrees. Because what happens is when you reach forward, the ground is higher than it was where you were before.
Down.
The opposite is true when you're going downhill. You want the pole to be a little longer because when you reach out, again, the ground is further away from you, which is your
Right.
next step.
Yeah.
So what I see oftentimes to know if you're using the pole incorrectly is number one, you're gripping them so tight that you're like white knuckling it.
Uh-huh.
People who are using them, they can sort of use them as crutches. They're putting too much weight on them. That's incorrect use of hiking poles.
Gotcha.
Other thing is that if you are going downhill and you're really leaning forward, like a lot of people have fear of falling when you're going downhill, especially if it's quite steep. And so they use poles to help them with that fear. But if their poles aren't adjusted properly and a little longer, then they're even leaning further forward as they place their poles,
Yeah.
and they're leaning away from the mountain, which is gonna
Scary.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna make you feel as if you're falling downhill, and it may actually do that. So if you think again of the skiing analogy, how do you go down a ski mountain? Well, you lean forward and then gravity takes you. If your poles are so short that you have to lean forward quite a bit for them to reach down, it's not going to feel secure. And
Right. So you want those poles a little longer
longer
for
going
when
down.
you're going downhill. For sure.
Yeah.
I use my poles quite a bit when I'm going downhill. I have a little bit of a depth perception going on with my vision. And I find when I have my pole adjusted longer, I'll use the end of it almost like a
Feedback.
guide as to tell
Yeah.
me how far it is down for me to step down. And it just gives me a lot more confidence. I use it for balance quite a bit when we're going over a log or a little tricky area. I work on my hips and my, everything quite like 7 times a week. I'm working on that
Yeah.
balance, those balance skills. But I still find that pole really helps me a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
So it's
very beneficial. And you mentioned using one versus using two. Quite often I'll start out with two and I end up with one because I'm like you, oftentimes leading people and people haven't brought poles. So I'll share a pole with somebody. So one is better than none and totally fine. It will help you, especially with things like you're talking about, like depth perception. It will help you with balance. It will help you with climbing. So using one pole is great too.
Absolutely. Very good. Any other tips for an exercise that someone could do to help their knees?
Well, exercise, I mean, there's a lot. And there's any one particular exercise, probably not. But the other tip that I would give folks when they're hiking is we've talked a lot about going downhill. When you're going uphill, if you will just hinge a little bit at the hips, it's going to recruit your glutes and it's going to take some pressure off your knees. So everyone says, well, it's just the downhill that bothers me. I do fine on the uphill, but I'm always wondering, what did you do on the uphill that you up for your knees being so stressed and tired by the time you start
Going
coming down?
down.
So if
Yeah.
you're going uphill and you're kind of straight, you're requiring your quads and your knees to really do a lot of the work. And the biggest muscle, the heavy lifter, is your glute, your backside, your buttocks.
Yeah. Isn't that
Um,
our biggest muscle?
it is, it
Yeah.
is. So simply by just hinging a little bit, now not stooping, you don't want to bend your body, but I'm talking about as you step up, if you just hinge at the hips a little bit forward, that glute will really be recruited and it will help propel you up and it really takes the pressure off your knees. So
Nice.
preserving your knees on the uphill so that they are not stressed and your quads aren't already fatigued by the time you start going downhill is going to really help you out.
Now, for a training tip, because we're talking about going uphill and downhill. Now we're in the Houston area. It's pretty flat. We don't have a
Mhm.
lot of opportunities to go uphill or downhill.
Right.
What would you recommend for
Mhm.
someone who wants to do one of those bucket list hikes and they're doing all their training in Houston on the
Mhm.
Houston area trails? What would you encourage them to add to their fitness routine?
Yeah, I would suggest that you find a set of stairs, whether
Uh-huh.
that is in a parking garage or an apartment building, an office building, even perhaps a hotel. I have a lot of my clients travel, and so they're in the hotel stairwells doing their training oftentimes. But when you find some stairs, here's what I recommend you do in order to make the most of that what limited stairs you have. When I train clients in Florida, Florida has this weird thing where they don't have very tall buildings in Florida. Like there are places where the regulation is that you can't have more than like two-story buildings.
Okay.
So another thing that we often do is fire training towers.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
think we have one not too far from us. I don't know if we can access it. Some of them are public.
That's
And
a great
so,
idea. I'll have to ask if the one around here is public or not. I don't
yeah.
know.
So find yourself some stairs. And then what I have people do is called stair pyramids. So this is where you're going to build your way up to the top of whatever your level is and then back down. So you're going to go up to the first landing and come back down. And then you're going to go up to the second landing and then come back down. And then you're going to go up to the third landing and come back down. And then you go up to the
Nice.
fourth landing and come down. And then by the time you're at the top and you're coming all the way back down, you reverse it. You go all the way to the top, you come back down. You go to the third landing, you come back down. You go to the second landing, come back down, and so forth. Now, you
Right.
can apply this principle to entire floors. You can apply this principle to single stairs. During COVID, when everything was shut down and it was hard to get out, and there were some times when I would just do stair pyramids on my own staircase in my house, one step at a time, going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Right.
It
Yeah.
gamifies it. I tell folks to take a water bottle and put it on the top step and come back down. And then the next time you go up, you have to get to that water bottle and move it up higher,
Oh, I
come
like
back
that.
down.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
good.
does. It gamifies this very tedious task of walking up and down stairs, and it really maximizes your time on the steps.
That's so cool. I want to tell you a story. I remember the very first time I did stair training. I didn't know what I was doing. I
Hmm.
just went out there. I went to the high school stadium. It's open to the public
Hmm.
outside of school hours. And so it took a lot for me to get there because I have a lot of self-doubt and I get nervous about doing new things. And so I pushed myself to get there and I
Yeah.
got there and I showed up and all I could do was that very first set of stairs. I went up and down, up and down, up and down for about 20 minutes until my legs were jiggly. I didn't know anything else to do. And I was in so much pain walking out of there. I've learned since then for me, it's better if I snake the stairs. Like if I go up and down and then maybe walk around a little bit and then go
Mhm.
up and down again and then walk around a little bit, or snake, kind of go up and then go across and up and then across. And I find that helps my hip flexors a lot. I tend to have a
Mm.
little bit of an issue with one of my hip flexors, and it's
Mhm.
just kind of an imbalance that I have going on that I've been working on for years. And what would you say to someone who's just starting out? How much time should they spend on the stairs? Like
Mhm.
maybe not as much as what I did that first time.
Well, I will say that high school stadiums stairs are next level. Like
Yeah,
those are challenging. They're very challenging, and they're very challenging to do it in the way that you did, all the way up and all the way down. So
that's what I did.
that's why I like the stair pyramid, because you just start out and maybe you don't ever get past halfway. So that limits the number of stairs you're doing at one time.
Gotcha.
You can still get a good workout, right? So,
Absolutely. Oh, I think the stairs are an amazing workout. I use that for all my training for all the mountains that I want to conquer.
yeah,
It's I get out to the stairs as often as I can.
it's a great idea.
Now, how can the hikers tell the difference between soreness and an actual injury?
That's a great question. So, the official name for exercise-induced soreness is delayed onset muscle soreness. You may also see it as DOMS,
Mm-hmm.
DOMS. It follows a very predictable pattern every single time. When you exercise, soreness doesn't occur right away. You might start to feel some soreness about 12 hours later, but most likely it's 24 hours later. So, say after a hike, you might feel stiff, but you're not in pain. But those first few steps out of bed the next morning, that might be a different story. You'll feel some pain, and then that pain is going to even be worse 48 hours later. So, think about that intense workout where 2 days later you can hardly sit down or get off of the toilet.
Yeah,
Muscle soreness.
that's a lot of squats.
Yeah, that's a lot of squats. But then 36 to 72 hours later, it resolves and you feel fine. Like it's sort of like magic, it's gone, right?
Right.
Whereas injury pain is going to present as either acute when you actually do the injury, like you cut yourself, you feel the pain right away. You fall, immediately your ankle hurts and you can't walk on it, right? That's acute pain or chronic pain that slowly gets worse over time. So if it's muscle soreness, it's going to be better in 3 days. If it's not better in 3 days, then you may have something else going on there.
Gotcha. The other one that I heard was like, let's say you get up in the morning and you're stiff, right? Or you're stiff and you're sore. And with movement, if it feels better with movement, then it's probably soreness. But if it gets worse with movement, then you probably have some sort of issue going on. Or it was a hard hike, right? Like you ended up doing 16, 20 miles, or even like,
Yeah.
depending on what your fitness level is, it could have been a 6 mile hike. And then you go to the bathroom and you try to get up, and it's like, oh, wow, what did I do to
Yeah.
myself? Yeah. And it's either, well, I want to get better, or I quit and I give up because it's too
Mm,
much. And we don't want people to quit and give up. It happens
no.
to all of us,
Yeah.
and you can get better and you can get stronger.
Absolutely. Just remember, you should be better in 3 days.
Yes.
Way back to you.
What is your number one warm up move for a hike? What do you tell people to do?
My number one recommendation is to do a dynamic warm up before a hike.
What
So I
does
have a
that mean?
well, a dynamic warm up, dynamic stretching is a type of stretching. So there's static stretching. If you think about, getting into a position and holding it, like maybe even a yoga pose, that's a dynamic stretch. There's ballistic stretching. If you think about when you're, of a certain age, again, a 70s kid, you probably did ballistic stretching in PE class where you
That's like the
legs
bouncing,
out.
right?
Dynamic stretching is stretching with movement, but it's not bouncing. It's stretching through an active movement so that when you engage one muscle, the opposite muscle is stretching. So, in other words, if I am going to contract my bicep, I'm engaging the bicep, but the tricep is actually getting a stretch on the other side. So the
Right.
reciprocal muscle is the one that's getting the stretch, the muscle opposite the one doing the movement. That's a dynamic stretch. So I have a quick routine you can go through. You can find it on my blog if you search on it for warm up, dynamic warm up. And it's a very quick routine. You go through some hip swings. So you stand on one leg and you swing the opposite leg front to back and side to side. Then you do it on the opposite side. You do butt kicks. So you're kicking your heel up to your butt and you're bending your knee. So that's engaging the hamstring, warming up the hamstring, but it's also stretching the quad on the front of the thigh. Monster walks, sometimes known as Russian soldier walks, where you walk with straight legs and you hold your hands out straight and you try and kick your hands. So you're
Uh-huh.
flexing
Yep.
you're using your hip flexors, you're using your quads, but you're stretching your glutes and your hamstrings by
Hamstrings.
doing that one. And then the other one is a foot sweep. So you take a step, you lift your toes up towards your nose, you reach down and you sweep your hands along both sides of your foot, and then you take a step and you repeat it on the other leg. And that's going to stretch your calves and also do some hamstring and glute stretching as well. So that routine is going to warm up your joints. It's going to stimulate your balance receptors. It's going to get your blood flowing, get your heart rate up because, it'd be great if every hike started out through a wandering meadow. But half the time you get out of the trailhead and you start going, and all of a sudden you're going uphill real fast. So,
Right. Hmm.
it's a great way to warm up, get your muscles stretched out, and you can do it all in standing. It takes 5 minutes, super easy, but it really makes a difference in how you're going to feel as you start your hike.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And I'll make sure that we put that in the show notes. I think that
Okay,
would be
great.
great. We could put a link to those stretches from your blog right into the show notes so that people can just click on that and it'll be easy for people to find. Good. What do women over 40 need to know about joint and mobility health?
The number one thing women need to know is that if you don't move it, you're going to lose it. I
Yep.
mean, that is
So
what
true.
happens to women as they age. They lose their range of motion because they aren't moving their bodies through complete ranges. They lose their endurance and their strength because they've become more sedentary and they're not challenging their fitness levels. So keep moving. You mentioned it earlier, like just keep moving, whatever, do something.
Do exactly, just do something. The one thing that I notice with the clients that I work with is that, and most of my clients are, over the age, like well over the age of 50, the ones that I work with for personal training and for small group clients, is they don't get on the floor anymore.
Hmm.
And that's a big issue for your hips and your flexibility and your strength. And one thing that I recommend people to do is if they still can, if they're comfortable, just get down on the floor for 10 minutes. Like just get on the floor and then you have to get yourself back up. And when you're down on the floor, you can do a stretching routine if you want to. If you want to just sit and watch TV, that's fine too. If you want to play with your grandkids, that's okay. Do whatever you want to do, but I want to encourage people just get on the floor and that'll be immense benefits to your lifelong health.
Absolutely. So my grandmother used to tell me there's two things you have to do every day for the rest of your life and you will be just fine. One of them was reach down and touch your toes. The other one was get on the floor and get back up. I mean,
Nice.
she was a woman ahead of her time. But one of the most fun functional things that I hear from clients after they've come to me for knee pain and they'll message me and they'll say, "Can I just do all the standing ones at once and then I'll get down on the floor?" And I said, "No, because there's a method to the madness, right? Getting down on the floor and getting back up because that is such an important skill. That skill has been linked to longevity and not just longevity, it's also been linked to quality of life and independent living. So the
Absolutely.
minute you can't get off the floor by yourself, it's a very steep descent into assisted living.
Right. Yeah. And your
So
quality of life is going to suffer. Yeah.
exactly, your quality of life. So in addition, if you want to have adventure and you want to do things like camp or step over a log or get underneath a fallen tree or any of those kinds of things, like you need to have that skill. But the
Yes.
most
Hmm.
important and fun functional win for most of my clients is I got down on the floor and played with my grandkids and I was able to
Yay.
by myself. Like that just makes them light up.
What is your best tip for staying pain-free on long hikes, other than hiking poles?
Yeah. Training. It's got to be
Training.
training. So if your body's ready for the demands of the trail, you're going to feel good while you're doing it, and you're going to feel good afterwards. So training the dynamic warm up at the beginning of a hike, also after a rest break. If you've been sitting on a log for 30 minutes staring out at a beautiful mountain lake and having your lunch, do some of those dynamic warm up moves before you start hiking again. And the last thing really is going to be hydration. Hydration with electrolytes can make a big difference in how you're feeling, can make a big difference in how your muscles function and feel too. So I think people forget sometimes, but we're not just talking about dehydration in a clinical sense, but just if you stay well hydrated, your muscles are going to feel better.
Your muscles and I find your whole body, like on a cellular level, you just feel better.
Yeah.
I know when I was on the hiking trail on Saturday and it was so humid and so hot on Saturday. Like my clothes, my pants normally don't get wet at the thighs, right? But like on the top of my quads, all the way to my knees, my pants were like soaking wet. It was just so hot and so humid, and I sweated so much. It was just incredible. And I was really drained that
Yeah.
night. And it took me
Yeah.
probably 24 hours to recover and feel like my normal self again. Like, and I normally have a lot of energy. I'm very quick and I like to learn things, but I was just flat out drained. And I think a lot of it has to do with hydration and electrolytes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. And people forget how much you sweat, especially in the humidity. But even in the drier parts of the country, you're losing a lot more moisture than you think you are. So there's a
Yes.
spectrum, there's this clinical definition of dehydration, but there's also this spectrum of hydration. And while you might not be in any sort of clinical danger, you may just not feel optimally if you are.
Right. We're going to move into the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Okay, I think so.
All righty. First one. What's the one thing you always carry on the trail?
Water, definitely water, and
Gosh,
more
yes.
water than I'm going to need. More water than you can shake a stick at. I'm always packing water. I've got at least 3 liters with me all the time now. I know that the ultralight hikers, backpackers are going to gasp and clutch their pearls at that.
Yes, they will. That's 6 pounds of water right there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But number one, I'm a heavy drinker. And I drink, I drink
Water.
a lot of water. Water.
Gotcha.
Let's qualify. But also, I'm oftentimes leading people or I'll come across people. And so I've always got emergency water with me. And
Oh, yeah. Like an
I
extra
don't
bottle
mind.
or something.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't mind packing heavy. I don't have a problem with heavy pack. So I will always have water with me. But you say the one thing I always carry on the trail, there's also going to be at least 10 other things that I'm going to have with me.
Of course. Yes,
Yeah.
we need the essentials. But, if you had to pick one, it would
Water,
be water.
water.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. It drives me crazy when people don't carry any water with them. What do you
All the
think?
time on our local trails, as hot and as humid as it is here. And I see it all the time.
Me too. My husband and I, we've rescued at least 3 sets of hikers this year. We come across them on the trail or we're at a trailhead and they say, we're out of water, we're out of food, our truck is 3 miles away or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, come on, you're coming with us. We'll give you a ride. Because they've gotten to themselves where they're in such a bad situation that they're actually asking for help, for one thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the other one, they're out of water, they're out of food, and that's, unfortunate. It's poor planning. I understand things happen and things go wrong, but carry
Well,
water.
yeah, here's my thing is that everyone's just going to go for a short walk.
Yes.
That's what everyone's thinking is when they walk out their front door or when they roll up to a trailhead. It's just going to be a short walk.
Yeah.
But they start talking and they miss their turnoff, or they see the next bend and something is like, oh, I wonder what's over there. And before you know it, that short walk has turned into 3 miles or 5 miles that they weren't really prepared for. And so it's never a short walk.
It's never a short walk. No, I like that one. That's good. What's your next question? What's your favorite trail recovery ritual? What do you like to do when you get off the trail?
Well, if it's a really long trek, there's nothing better than going straight for a burger and fries.
Oh gosh, I love a good burger after a hard hike.
Yeah. And the fries
Absolutely.
too, like, right? It's just in this for the sake of the electrolytes, right?
Got to replace that salt somehow.
Exactly. Always just sounds so good. And then an Epsom salt bath, is all.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. I'll do a foot bath sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But it's not a ritual, but I do like that idea. It's a good burger. I remember I did the Cure Search for cancer research. It's a
Yeah,
marathon
yeah,
distance
I
hike.
remember.
You do it in one day. So I did that one, and it was like after that hike, it's like, "Ugh, I just want a burger. Just
No,
give me a burger. Something
I
just that feel good food. And yeah.
100%. That's what I'm wanting. That's getting me like the last 3 miles. It's the thoughts about the burger. That's what's pushing me through.
What do I get to eat? Give me food. Yes. What's the best advice you give clients that no one wants to hear, but it works?
Probably consistency over intensity.
Yes.
That's one of my core philosophies. And I work predominantly with type A hikers who think more is better, but sometimes more is just more. And your body isn't necessarily ready for more. So I rarely have to push my clients. I'm oftentimes holding them back and building resilience in their tissues. And that helps them avoid overtraining and chronic injuries so that they can keep hiking. I have clients who have worked with me for 2, 3 years or more, and they just keep getting better and they don't suffer those setbacks of overtraining.
Right.
So your body is going to feel better. You're more likely to stick with a program if you're not burning yourself out with every workout. So my philosophy is you can work effectively in just 30 minutes a day if you can do it consistently 3 to 4 times a week. And this really goes against bro science and fitness, but I've got so many success stories because I'm coming at it from a rehab mindset as much as a performance mindset. So I'm always thinking about injury prevention. I'm always thinking about tissue health. I'm always thinking about load management. And my goal for my clients is to truly be healthy hikers well into their 70s and even 80s.
I love that so much. One thing that I tell some of my people that I've worked with is, even football players have an off season. You can't just think that you can go from Pilates class to yoga class to a CrossFit class and then do that repeatedly day after day after day. Eventually your body's going to break down. And everybody take has an off season. And I love what you said about 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. That's really what we need to do to maintain our fitness, to keep our tissues healthy so that we're not constantly breaking down and we're giving them ample time to rebuild and recover. What is your favorite stretch or mobility move?
Probably, I would say downward dog. Um,
Oh, yeah, good one.
it just hits all the things. You got your calves, hamstrings, hip flexors. If you do downward dog and move into upward dog, you've got your core, your shoulders. Like just even if you do downward dog to upward dog
Do that
2 or 3
flow.
times, nice and slowly, like, oh, feels so good.
I love that move. That's such a great move because you're right. It gets your calves, your Achilles, and then when you go forward, like even into Cobra or up dog, whatever it's called, you get that stretch on the front. And I love that stretch on your front. I think that's one of my
Mhm.
favorites. Well, thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate you being on the show with me today. Is there anything else that you want to add or share with our audience? Where can they reach you at?
Yeah, you can find me at thehealthyhiker.com. I am going to be giving a webinar. It's going to be called The Three Things Your Doctor Didn't Tell You About Your Knee Pain. That is on June 30th. It's a free informational session, and I'd love to have them.
Will that be on Zoom or is it in person?
It's a virtual webinar. They'll
That's
be able to
excellent.
register online and I'll send them a link. My programs are entirely virtual. People can do them on their own time, in their own space, whatever they prefer that to be. You can do it when you're traveling. I have clients all over the world. So it's a very flexible, portable program, but they also stay very well connected with me. So I'm right there with them the whole time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on today and taking the time out of your busy day.
Thanks for including me, and hopefully we can get out on the trail together again soon.
Oh, that would be very fun. All right. Thank you so much.
You're
You have a good day.
welcome.
If you're enjoying this episode of Just Hike, here's how you can help support the show. First, be sure to follow, download, and share this episode. It helps more adventurers like you and me discover the podcast and helps keep this journey going strong. And if you're gearing up for your next hike or just curious about my favorite outdoor gear, be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate page. I've listed all the items I actually use, from hiking shoes to trail snacks. You'll find them at justhyke.com. Every purchase through the link helps support the podcast at no extra cost to you. Thanks again for being here with me on the trail. Let's go back to our show.